Men, welcome to the podcast Messages for Men. I am your host, Brad Dombaugh. I'm glad you're here today. Remember, this podcast is for men, about men, and maybe how we can get a little better. I'm honored once today to have Craig Glass. He was here last time when we talked about a good man versus a nice guy. I thought it was well done. Got some good comments, Craig, on that.
Yeah, thank you, Brad.
Anyway, I asked you to come back because I wanted to talk to you about guilt and shame, in particular shame. I've heard you talk about that before, but I thought it was a really impactful talk that you gave one time. Yeah. And I think for men, you know, when you look at what prowls around at the night and what devours you, especially for men, a lot of that is shame.
Yeah.
So I wanted to get your take on it, especially when you deal with men.
Love to.
Let you expand on that a little bit. So let's start out real quick by maybe some terms that we need to define, because some people think of guilt and shame as one and the same.
Yeah.
So having said that, in your mind, what is the difference, or is there a difference between, in men in particular, between guilt and shame?
Yeah. Love that. And thanks for the opportunity, Brad. I'm so glad to be back with you. I like to start, first of all, by saying when we're referring to shame here today, what we're not talking about. Okay. What we're not talking about is, doesn't that young lady does she have no shame dressing like that? We're not talking about a sense of proper decorum in society. Some people use shame that way. I don't use it that way at all. But that's not what we're talking about. It's just proper behavior. The difference between guilt and shame. Guilt is based on behavior. I do some bad action, say shoplifting a members-only jacket out of a department store as a freshman in college. Just for example, hypothetical.
That didn't happen, of course.
It actually did happen. I can lie about it. I can pretend like it didn't happen. It happened. It's black and white. Mm-hmm. And I feel guilty about that. If I have any sense of conviction or right and wrong,
right,
I feel guilty about that. And I just use the term conviction. A lot of times I think good men or good women, when we do something we know is wrong, we feel guilty about it, and there's a sense of conviction. I feel convicted about having done that. I might even return it the next day. I feel so badly about it. And by the way, no, I didn't.
Yeah. Okay.
That's guilt. To me, guilt is black and white. It's behavior-based. Shame is different on almost every level. It's not based on behavior. It's based on a sense of my identity, my self-worth. And it's gray, it's fuzzy, it's hazy, it's murky, it's like you're in a fog. Because it's not necessarily based on one specific activity. One author said, shame is like a dark cloud hanging over you, convincing you that you are uniquely defective. That's shame.
Yeah.
There's something wrong about who I am.
Right.
That's not true of anybody else. It's just me.
Right.
That's shame.
Okay. All right. I agree with you 100%. I look at guilt more so as the little voice that knocks at the door and says, you know, you kind of screwed that up.
Yeah.
You know, you had a conversation with somebody who was very hurtful. You did something that you probably shouldn't have done. Once again, it's more about behavior. But I look at guilt in many ways. It can be your mentor, your friend, your guy. In other words, it keeps you in check. It's the compass of your life that kind of steers you in ways that you should go.
Yeah.
Where I think guilt can be more about things that you need to change in your life. I mean, I know in my life, I've changed things because I felt guilty about it.
Right.
I didn't get up and work out this morning. I feel guilty. I'm going to make sure I hit that tomorrow. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was really short with my son. I feel guilty about that. I need to call and say something and apologize for that behavior. But once again, behavior.
Yeah.
But I love what you said about shame. Shame is more identity. It's more of your essence. It's more of, you know, I didn't do something bad. I am bad. I am broken. Yeah. I am unlovable. I am not worthy.
And it's a little bit hard to grasp. That's why I say it's not so much black and white. It's more gray and fuzzy.
Sure.
Because it's ongoing. It's not specific behavior based. It's this sense, maybe because of messages we heard from our parents or some pastor or some coach that, you don't really measure up. There's something about you that doesn't quite hit the bar.
Right.
Really specifically what? I'm not a good tackler on football team. I don't use grammar well. No, there's just something where you don't really measure up. That's grayish. That's shame.
We talked before about shame too, in terms of childhood. And I keep going back to this because I know in my life, I've had to dig hard into why I behave the way I do.
Yeah.
I get guilt. In fact, I feel there's probably not a day goes by that I don't feel guilty about something. I'm 10 minutes late for a meeting. I feel guilty. But what it does, it reminds me, you need to leave earlier next time.
Yeah.
So it does, like I said, it's more corrective. But, shame, when you have to unpack that can deal with a lot of childhood stuff, what message you were told very, very young.
Yeah.
Even from your parents.
Yes, absolutely. And if it's okay, I'd love to tell you, speaking of childhood, a childhood story from me, one that you actually already have heard me tell. When I was 8 and my younger brother Clyde was 3, we used to play in the backyard all the time, digging holes with shovels and pitchforks and trowels and then spraying it down with water and making highways out of mud, and we'd run our cars on it and stuff like that. Anyway, we're just little guys in the backyard, especially he was 3. Clyde was sitting in the hole after we were done playing around, and I thought, oh, here's a great idea. I picked up the pitchfork and I decided I'm going to scare the daylights out of him. And I raised it up over my head. Clyde's looking at me like eyeballs with like saucers. And my plan was bring that down into the ground right in front of where he's sitting. That was the plan. I missed. I missed the planet. I brought it down directly into Clyde's knee. And of course was horrified at my mistake, my bad aim, pulled it back. Clyde screams, understandably. Blood's now starting to drain out of his knee. I tossed the pitchfork, and I can't believe what I've done. I don't know what to do about what I've done. And Clyde gets up. He's about to run into the house. My mom was at home. My dad was at work. And what do you think the first thing I said was?
I didn't do it.
Yeah, I didn't think of that one. Don't tell Mom.
Oh, yeah.
Just as unlikely.
Yeah.
Don't tell Mom. What else is he going to do? He's 3.
Right.
Runs into his house, and I know for sure, in moments, my mom's coming outside, which she did, and she's frantically concerned about Clyde's well-being and what in the world happened. Brad, I concocted a series of lies on the spur of the moment that is the worst series of lies probably in the history of humanity. Mom comes out, what happened to Clyde's knee? Oh, he jumped into the hole. No, he didn't. And a wire cable in the hole stuck him in the knee. Of course, no, it's the pitchfork. She said, wire cable? What wire cable? Oh, it's like I wasn't anticipating that question. I dug it out. So nobody would get hurt again. I'm the hero of the story now. Where's the cable? What did you do with it? Oh, I dug it behind the bushes back by the alley. This is ridiculous. The bushes, 40 feet away. Anyway, you can see where this is going. I'm frantically trying to cover up my behavior. And finally she gets exasperated and says, okay, I got to take Clyde back inside. I need to clean out this wound. Dad's going to come home and he's going to want to know what happened. My dad's a hospital administrator working downtown Chicago. I got about 45 minutes to figure out a better story.
You better start working on it.
Yeah. Anyway, he comes home and asks me the same series, and now I got to stick with the same story. And he says, show me the cable that you buried. So I'm going to show him the non-existent cable buried under the trees that, yes, the bushes exist, but there's nothing there, of course. And we're walking across the yard, and lightning struck, and a little bit of sprinkle started coming down on the way to the bushes. And my dad said, let's just do this another day. And I thought, I agree, Dad, let's do this another day. I thought, God just saved my life. No, that's not what happened. What happened was I saw that triangular shaped scar. The tines on the pitchfork were triangular shape. on Clyde's knee for years and years and years. Nobody ever brought it up again. Clyde never brought it up. My parents never brought it up. But every time he was in a swimsuit or shorts or in a basketball jersey, and he played basketball beyond college, he was a very good basketball player, every time I saw it. And it was a reminder of shame. You did this. Nobody else on the planet has ever stabbed their brother in the knee with a pitchfork. That might be true. Actually, I've had guys tell me when I tell this story, no, I stabbed my brother in the thigh with a pitchfork. But Brad, here's the point. I carried that lie for years and years and years, and I thought I escaped when the lightning struck. I did not. I carried this sense of defectiveness, hiddenness. There's a lie about me that I need to keep safe from everybody else. That's shame.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that's, I think, pretty powerful about shame. We need to talk about it with men, but shame seems to reside in the darkness. It seems to reside in the shadows. In other words, I think men have difficulty enough expressing emotions, whether it's sadness or grief or hurt, pain, whatever it may be. And we kind of suppress it or bury that as shame. We're defective. We're not good enough.
Right.
We're not lovable. We're
That's
broken.
right.
We're not good men.
Yeah.
Why do you think men do that?
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. The way I put it, I use your terms too. Shame grows in darkness or hiddenness. To me, it's kind of like mushrooms or mold or something that thrives in darkness, and it thrives when you just leave it alone. You stop mowing the lawn, mushrooms start growing. Shame is like that. If we just let it fester, it goes deeper and proliferates. For me, I've discovered over time, I know you have too, one of the ways to go about freeing ourselves and healing ourselves from shame is to let somebody else know. Let somebody else know the story or walk alongside me in this.
Oh, absolutely. Something else, I think, guilt doesn't get a free pass. What I mean by that, in all that we talk about, guilt can be good. Good in the sense that it can correct us.
Yeah.
But I think there's something that we need to keep in mind as men is that if we continue to layer guilt upon guilt upon guilt, let me give you an example. Let's say, for example, which afflicts so many men, you watch too much pornography.
Right.
And you keep saying to yourself, this is a behavior that I do, and it's not good. I got to stop this. This isn't good. Afterwards, I really don't feel good about myself.
Right.
But you continue to do it over and over again.
Right.
Over time, this layering of guilt can harden you to the point where this becomes your essence of who you are. And now, Craig, I'm a filthy, nasty man who looks at pornography.
Dirty old man.
Because this is what I am now.
Who knew this is what I was going to become?
Right. So I think we have to be cautious in the sense that guilt can serve in good ways to help correct us and tell us what we should be doing because of our behavior.
Yes.
But if we don't do something with guilt, it can become our next shame.
Yeah. No, great point.
That makes sense.
Yes. And I'd love to share this story. It's an illustration from the Bible.
Okay.
Where some guys ask me, I'm a pastor, I talk about this stuff pretty regularly. They'll ask me, well, where did shame come in the first place? My answer is, it showed up very, very early on in the human story. Most people listening and watching, guys or women, will know the story about Adam and Eve in the garden. Yeah. And they know the story about them being told, you got everything you want, just don't eat that apple. And then they're tempted by Satan and Eve, and then Adam both eat the apple. As soon as they do that, they run away. And God, the Bible says in Genesis 3, God started to look for them, found them, and said, why have you left the garden? And Adam responds, we heard you coming, and we were afraid because we were naked. So I hid me.
Ashamed.
I hid me. Ashamed. Yeah, unbelievable. God's response is, who told you were naked? You're okay being just exactly who you are. No, now somehow you know, I have to cover up who I am.
Right.
My perspective of that is that's the first element and case of shame. I have to cover up because otherwise I'm naked and everybody knows it. Ouch.
Yeah, I think, what would you say? I mean, I'm of the opinion that shame may be one of the most destructive emotion that men face today, and they do it in silence.
Yeah.
They do it because we as men in society today are supposed to be strong.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be competent. We're supposed to be able to handle our own stuff. And when we don't know what to do with that shame.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of brokenness in men doesn't come out, but it comes out in other ways.
Yeah.
Eventually.
Yeah.
Do you think that's true?
Absolutely. I think it is the element, whether it's a psychological position, an emotion, a spiritual perspective, whatever it is, I think it is the most effective tool to take men out of the picture. Probably women too. But I know enough men, and I know me, and I've heard you.
Yeah.
It takes men out of the picture. What do I mean by that? It takes men away from the sense that I am competent enough that I have something to bring to the table here. Leading my family with wisdom. No, if they knew I was a porn addict, they wouldn't even listen to me, so I just stay quiet. Mm-hmm. Leading my business with integrity. Well, geez, if they knew how I cheated on my taxes, they'd fire me tomorrow. Mm-hmm. One thing after another, whatever the story is, whatever the layer is, when we know this in our mind and in our soul, we take ourselves out of the picture and we keep ourselves, metaphor, on the sideline, not on the playing field. We keep ourselves on the sideline, silent and alone.
Oh, that's a great way to say it, because I think there's so many guys that are like that today,
oh, God, yes.
As a matter of fact.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've dealt with many men who've talked about the shame in their lives and really not knowing what or how to deal with it.
Yeah.
For a second, I want to, because you've dealt with men for 35 years, you've written a couple books about the journey of men. Let's leave space in this podcast for the spirituality of, of shame. Because I think it's important, although this podcast is for men of any age, any race, it's really for anybody, religion, nationality, it doesn't really matter. That's not what it's about. But I think that there is room to talk about the spirituality of shame. I mean, when I think about it, logically, I guess, and I try to think about shame and what it would mean from a spirituality standpoint, and tell me if you think I'm wrong. But I think, what would I do if I was the evil one? If I was, for lack of a better term, if I was Satan? I mean, I would really prey upon shame in men. Why? Because if I can retain men in the dwelling in the cellars of life in the darkness with shame,
yes,
men will never seek the light, ever.
Yeah.
Because they're too ashamed to do so. So if the goal of, let's say, the evil one is to separate us from God Almighty, then it seems to me that in this case, Satan, I'll just say Satan, for example, that's the ultimate goal, is to keep men in a place of shame.
100%.
Okay.
You're not just close. In my opinion, 100%. You call him the evil one. So does Scripture. Scripture also calls him the enemy. There's a verse in 1 Peter in the New Testament of the Bible. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, looking to see who he can devour. If we believe this is true, and I think probably most of our audience here certainly does believe in spirituality, I would think, believes in God, probably perhaps also believes in Satan, the enemy. He's prowling around. He's not coming in the front door. He's not making it really obvious, hey, I'm going directly straight in front of this guy. No, he's coming around the back. He's prowling around like a lion, looking to see who he can take out of the picture. That's the truth of what's going on, Brad, I believe, for men and women. We are spiritual beings. Most of us know that and accept that. We're physical beings too. No argument. We are spiritual beings, whether we believe it or accept that or not. There is spiritual resistance in the world, and his name is Satan.
Yeah.
Shame, I believe, is his biggest weapon. at least against men, biggest weapon. Take them out of the picture. Cause them to doubt that there is a God, that he's a God of love and grace and forgiveness, as well as a God of righteousness. He loves to forgive. Oh, I'm going to make them not even believe that stuff if I were the enemy. Cause them to doubt it.
Yeah.
I'd like to tell a little bit, another chapter on the pitchfork story, because it fits right here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Fits here. When I was 43, 35 years after the pitchfork incident, I felt not only conviction, I did something wrong. I realized through some books I read or messages I listened to, I realized I am carrying a cloak of shame. That's the metaphor that I used. When I stabbed my brother with a pitchfork and then lied through my teeth to my mom and dad about it for years and years and years, I put on a layer of shame. Perfectly fitting, ugly, kind of hairy, greasy, filthy. This layer. And whatever I did next, stealing a jacket out of the department store, I realized 35 years later, I have not dealt with the issue of shame in my life, and I need to do something about it. So what I was convicted to do was call Clyde.
He probably didn't remember it.
Well, here we go. Yeah, you're basically right. I called Clyde 35 years later, so he's now 38, I'm 43. He lives in British Columbia or Alberta. He married a Canadian, and he's lived up there for, most of his life. Clyde, hey, pal, it's Craig. Oh, neat. Hey, Craig, so good to hear from you. It's not like we talk to each other every day. Clyde, I need to talk to you about something that's been on my heart and my mind for a long time. I know you got a scar on your knee. You've seen it. Do you know where that came from? And he said, yeah, I remember the backyard, and there's a hole in the backyard, right? And so he's remembering, and I said, Clyde, I need you to know I put that there, not on purpose. I stabbed you in the knee with the pitchfork. Pause, and Clyde said, pretty crazy, right? That was it. Pretty crazy. Laugh it off.
Yeah.
For 35 years, I did not laugh it off, Brad. I carried that thing for 35 years.
Yeah.
Finish the conversation. Next conversation might be the tougher of the two. Mom and Dad.
Oh, wow.
They live in Florida. I just have to get it off my shoulders, off my chest. And so I call my parents. They live in Sarasota at that point. My dad answers the phone. Hey, pal, how you doing? How's the weather up there? It's beautiful down here. Dad. I got something serious I need to talk with you about. Can you get Mom on the other line, please? Oh, okay. Hey, Vonnie, get on the line. So they're both on. And essentially I go through the same routine. Hey, you guys, I need to talk with you about something I should have talked with you about maybe 3.5 decades ago. And they're wondering, stone silence on the other end. I'll bet you've probably seen the scar on Clyde's knee. There's a triangular shaped scar when he wears shorts and swimsuits and stuff like that. You've probably seen it a lot. And my dad says, what? The scar. And I'm getting a little worked up because this is emotional and this is not easy. I'm getting a little... The scar, Mom and Dad, the scar on Clyde's knee, I'm sure they've seen it. I need you to know what happened on Clyde's knee and how that scar got there. It was me. I stabbed him with a pitchfork. I'm on the edge of tears. And my mom said, sweetheart, we don't know what you're talking about. That's the impact of shame. I carried it like a rock, a multiplying layer of shame and filth for 3.5 decades. And the recipient of the pitchfork said, hey, pretty crazy, huh? Just boys.
Yeah.
Mom says, we don't know what you're talking about. And where I go with that, as a pastor and as a spiritual being, Brad, is, to me, that's the way the Heavenly Father looks at it. When we confess the things we've done wrong, and we bring them to the person we've offended, but also confess them to God the Father. Mm-hmm. And if we have the faith that perceives Jesus' sacrifice, his death on the cross, as having been grace for us, the Father's reaction to us when we come to him in shame is, I don't know what you're talking about. I specifically remember forgetting about that.
I've heard the story before. I love that story. And it's so profound to hear you say, even at your age, to say
at
it.
My age.
To speak
still,
it again.
I don't think I'll ever forget it.
So what do you say now to men who, let's say men who struggle with shame?
Yeah.
And they're trying their best to figure out ways that they can rid themselves of this, this condemnation.
Yeah.
The heavy weight that they carry, the feeling that I'm not good enough. I really am a bad man.
Right.
Where do I go with this? What do I do with this? And how do I, for lack of a better term, a man's term, how do I fix this? I have some ideas, but I want to hear from you. What do you tell men who are dealing with shame and they need help?
Yeah, let me throw out a couple of them, and then I'd love to hear yours.
Yeah.
The first is to know, not convince yourself, to know you're not the only one. You think you are. You're not the only one. You're not the only guy who struggles with pornography. Roughly about 80% of any audience of men have some experience of struggling with pornography. At least that number, sometimes higher. You're not the only one, you guys. Secondly, get out of the darkness and the isolation that the father of sin and shame, the enemy himself, the evil one, wants us to stay in. Get out of the darkness, and what I mean by that is isolation and hiddenness and lying. Please find a friend, as I know you have, as I have, a handful of friends sitting around the fire pit the other night with you. I saw that for you. A handful of friends that you do life with, and over time you've trusted and told them some of the darker stories. Mm-hmm. And now they know. And now you see they don't hate me. Mm-hmm. They, in fact, have some awareness of that experience themselves and can bring me some wisdom and discernment of how I might walk differently. I think it's so important to bring it to other guys.
Yeah, love that. Craig, one of the things I think men need to do is when we start talking to ourselves like we're not good enough, mm-hmm. we're unworthy, we're unlovable, we're bad, we're trash, whatever we think we are, we're toxic. The question I want to ask men, would you talk to your best friend like that? No, you really wouldn't. So I think we've got to get in a position where we're comfortable saying, I'm not going to talk to my best friend like that. I'm not going to speak to myself like that.
Right. Good.
I think another thing, we have to learn how, in some ways for men, I guess, to try to burn the shame and move on. And I'll, just a quick story that I'll tell you. And it wasn't my idea, but I did this. There's a few things in my life, and I'll give you one of them, for example. I was extremely ashamed of myself because when my father passed away, I felt a little numb. I was a little bit indifferent. My father and I relationship wasn't great, and I just couldn't figure out why didn't feel more sadness. And I felt a tremendous amount of shame because I felt I was a horrible son.
Yeah.
I'm just a bad son.
Yeah.
I'm a bad guy. And so what I did was I wrote down some things that I was truly ashamed of, not guilty of, but ashamed of. Mm. And I speaking to the fire pit, lit the fire pit, wrote it down, wrote a paragraph, and I stuck it in the fire pit and burned it. And I basically said to myself, this has got to go. In other words, I still identify, and I know this is in the past, but it's in the past. You're going to have to learn, Brad, to move forward, and your shame will only hold you back.
Good for you.
I think another thing that I think it would be remiss if we didn't talk about, in some cases, shame can be so devastating that men need real help. And sometimes buddies can do that. I'm not going to deny that at all, to bring it to light and to help that.
Right.
But there's been some trauma and affliction so deep into childhood. Let me give you an example. You grow up in a childhood, for example, with a narcissistic father and a mother that didn't protect you, right? You felt vulnerable. Emotionally, you didn't feel loved. You weren't really sure where to go to find it. So you couldn't express emotions and love and all that you needed to do to have healthy relationships, because there was always a doubt whether you were loved or not and whether you'd be abandoned or not. So you go into adolescence, and even you go into, let's say, teenage years and adulthood. You have some relationships that are hurtful. Maybe they abandon you. My point is that you can get to the point where you begin to believe the negative about yourself and who you are because of where you came from. And I think in some regards, we have to look at rewiring in terms of neuroplasticity, the brain in specific ways in order to overcome that. And I know for some people who've had a lot of trauma, especially in their childhood, they've had to spend a lot of time with counselors and therapists, things like this, in order to get where they're, for lack of a better term, to overcome the shame that they feel. It's not to negate what men can do for each other. All I'm saying is we have to learn to raise the red flag or the white flag and say, I surrender. I need more help than what I'm getting.
I fully agree with you, Brad. Sometimes it's so deep and it's so debilitating, shame, that we need professionals who have been down this path before. They know how to walk down this road, man alive. Sometimes it's that deep. I'm not a therapist, a professional therapist, but I am a pastor.
Right.
I understand spirituality, the soul, the heart, the mind. I understand this stuff, and I love to walk with men in this. I have talked with men recently over a period of time and just has some stories about their childhood and stuff like that. And one guy in particular comes to mind right now. He could remember hardly anything. He could hardly remember any specific stories of childhood. As a little boy, sure. As he got a little bit older, boy, I asked him, where did you live when you were between 10 and 12? Or tell me about a story, and you and your family or your siblings. God, I just can't remember. Over time, sometimes, not always, but sometimes, those are our own body's protective system. Don't go there. That is damaging territory. The body has learned, and the heart, back off. Do not tread this territory. And so, yes, I think professional therapists know how to walk that ground. A pastor who really knows what he's doing knows how to respectfully walk that ground, convince the person, your story is safe with me. I'm safe. Go ahead. Do you remember next? Tell me about you and your dad. Tell me about you and your mom. Tell me whatever it is. Do you remember next? And often the story gets peeled away, layer by layer by layer, in the face of safety. Yeah. I'm not going to be condemned.
Right.
I'm safe here. Who I am is safe with you.
I mean, we talked about the last podcast, but in many ways, the mind, like I said before, is not so much concerned about what's healthy or not. It's concerned about what's safe. It understands, if you lived in chaos, it understands chaos. And it goes back to chaos because that's where it existed and that's where it's comfortable. Because
very familiar.
That's what it knows. It's familiar with. So, I mean, my encouraging word to men and messages from men in this regard is that we all feel shame. But we have to figure out how to get past this. And if shame controls your life to the sense where you cannot move forward, it affects relationships, it affects your job. We've got to figure out ways in which we can do that, whether it's connecting with men and bringing shame to light, whether it's a good counselor, therapist. But I would just encourage men to look at yourselves and figure out, Craig, whether this is guilt or shame.
Good.
We can be guilty about a lot of things, and many times guilt helps us get better.
Yes, you're right.
But shame, on the other hand, is something, it's an identity crisis that we have to deal with as men. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, we do have to understand the difference between guilt and shame. And in walking the ground with other people, whether it's a therapist, a pastor, a good friend who really proves trustworthy over time, that weight, that filthy rag that we've worn that's customized fit for us over the last 35 years gets taken off.
Yeah.
Step by step gets taken off. There's freedom from shame. But I so much want men to know who are listening, you are not the only one.
You're not alone.
We talked about this already, but I just want to emphasize it. Guilt is kind of undeniable. You can lie about it, but it's undeniable. It's the truth about me. Shame is a lie about me. It's the lie. The truth about me is I stabbed my brother. The lie about me is I'm defective from any role of integrity or leadership or being around 3-year-old boys, anything like that. There's a lie. Shame is a lie about us that the enemy, the evil one, has convinced us to believe.
Great.
Yeah, so you tell the story, Brent, about that time that you wrote on a piece of paper, you know, what you're ashamed about, and you burned it. I've done exactly the same thing with literally dozens of men. Often about 12, 15, 20 guys together at one time, and I do a talk exactly about this, about the broken impact, the lie about shame in people's lives. And so at the end of the talk, I have him take a 3x6 card and just write down on that card a word, a phrase, or a sentence of shame, a message of shame you've been carrying for a long period of time. Just do one. You don't have to list the 17. Write it down on that piece of paper. Hey, we're heading downhill to the campfire. We're going to sit around there, and I'm going to just start us out and say one guy at a time. Walk up to the campfire.
Well, that takes some vulnerability.
And throw it in there.
Yeah.
And here's what I also do. And you just have to build a space of trust and vulnerability, like you just said. I also let them know you may receive another layer of release and freedom. It's up to you, but you may receive another layer of release. Before throwing it in there, just read it to the rest of the men. If you want.
Wow.
Just read it. If you don't want to, don't. Toss it. The great majority of guys do read it, largely because I say, I'm going first. And what's on my card invariably is getting exposed to pornography at age 11.
Oh, wow.
And a hook. That's pretty young back in the mid-60s.
Oh, yeah.
And a hook getting stuck and pulling. And so for me, for years, there's this vulnerability to pornography that a kid who grows up in my kind of good family and attends church twice every Sunday and Wednesday nights should not be like this. I'm a defective kid because I got this pull. Here's what I learned. If I go first, the great majority of the guys are going to follow. The great majority. And here's the other thing, Brad. I can't tell you the percentage, but it has to be over 75% of the time what's on the card that these guys have just shared with us. Some kind of sexual sin, some kind of sexual promiscuity or assault, or being the victim of some sexual assault. I've heard multiple men say, my shame is I was raped by my uncle.
Oh, wow.
Wham. I'm getting rid of it right now.
Yeah.
It's not your fault.
Yeah.
Burn that lie.
That's big. That's big. If I could just add one more thing on the shame side, I think men can do to help themselves move out of it. Sometimes we can become obsessed with our shame. We ruminate it. We think about it a lot of times. You know, it really does. It's insidious in the fact that it affects our lives, almost like a malignant cancer.
Yeah.
I think, especially when I'm thinking about my own life, I think that getting involved in other activities, things like mentorship, things like giving to charity,
good.
Where you are actually giving of yourself, right? Doing this type of activity and work where you get away from those thought patterns.
Yeah.
Helps. And it also does two things for you. Sometimes, anyway, for me, it does as much for me as it does for the charity, honestly. But it helps me get out of the headspace as I'm bad.
Yeah.
I'm not good.
Right.
I'm not lovable. I'm unworthy.
Right.
Nobody would want me to a position of I can help.
Yeah.
I am worthy.
I'm capable.
People do enjoy the fact that I'm able to do this.
Yeah.
So I think if men are stuck in this cycle of rumination with shame, get out and do something for others.
Yeah, I love that.
Doing that removes you many times from your shame, and it removes you from the headspace that occupies.
Get the spotlight you got on yourself.
Absolutely.
Turn that elsewhere.
That's what I'm saying. It can be an obsession, and so we need to turn that spotlight the other way and make it about others and how we can help others. And I think that helps eliminate some of our shame as well, make us feel better about who we are.
Yeah.
So, Craig, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. I hope men understand a little bit more about the difference between guilt and shame. And once again, I encourage men, if you're dealing with shame, try to figure out ways that you can deal with it better. Connect with men, talk about it, bring it to light, become vulnerable, because at that point, it helps you recover from that. And if it's bad enough and in a dark enough spot, seek some help. We can all get better through that.
Yeah. Thank you, Brad.
Always a pleasure, Craig. Thank you very much for being here.
Thanks
you know
a lot.
that. Take care of yourself.
Thanks, Brad.
Thank you. Messages from men. We'd love for you. Hey, guys, we'd love you to subscribe, to like, and especially make a comment. It does help us on the YouTube algorithms to kind of move forward. So please take some time to do that. Appreciate it. Helps us move forward. Thank you all. And men, have a great day. Take care.